Hi, I'm Katie Williams, Technical and Product Development Manager at Dengy, and today I'm going to share with you the different ingredients we can use when creating a forage replacer for horses. At the least digestible end of the spectrum, we have cereal straw. We tend to use oat straw, but wheat straw and barley straw can sometimes be fed to horses too. It's indigestible because as the plant grows tall, it needs to give itself some structure to be able to stand upright. That indigestible material actually reduces the calorie value to the horse, so the horse literally doesn't have time to get the energy from it when it consumes it. As we work through, we come to hay, and again this is grass and allowed to grow to maturity, so very long pieces of forage, and it's this maturity that means it's less digestible to the horse when it's consumed. That's in contrast to our short chops, such as pure grass here. The grass plants, when we harvest them, are much shorter, so much younger, and therefore they haven't put the indigestible material into their structure to hold them upright. So they're more digestible and the horse can get more nutrition from them. And then right at the other end of the spectrum, I have a Swede here to represent sugar beet. Now sugar beet is a great source of highly digestible fibre. Because the beet is underground, it doesn't need that structure to hold itself upright, it has the soil to support it. When the sugar beet is processed, the sugar is extracted for use in the human food industry, and we're left with a fibrous pulp. And it's that fibrous pulp that's full of really good, useful, digestible fibre for the horse. It's very conditioning, and it makes a great mash, such as here in Dengy Alpha beet. Another ingredient we have available to us is alfalfa, and it's a really nutritious plant. So much so that it has the same energy value as a cool mix or a high fibre cube, and that would obviously be too much for a lot of our leisure horses and ponies, those that are overweight or those that are prone to laminitis. So what we do is blend it with straw. Obviously we chop it and create something like Hi-Fi Light here at the front, which is designed for good doers, those prone to laminitis, and is a really useful low calorie forage replacer. So when we're conserving grass to make forage for use when grass isn't available, we have two options. We either dry it to the point where the dry matter is around 90%, so we need 10% moisture to preserve it, or we can have a higher moisture content but wrap the product to keep air away to protect the forage inside. So we would recognise those as hay or haylage. And actually we tend to use the term wrapped hay for the vast majority of wrapped forages these days, because in most cases the dry matter is actually nearer to a hay, and they just wrap the product with the plastic at the very end, so it's nearly 70–80% dry matter. Hay tends to be harvested later when it's slightly more mature than haylage or wrapped hay. That means that it's more mature and so less digestible, and therefore the horse tends to do less well on it. So it's often used for good doers. Haylages or wrapped hays tend to be harvested earlier because you don't need quite so much time to dry them. So earlier in the season, you've got more chance of getting it conserved in a couple of days of wilt time. And then when you wrap it, it retains some moisture, so when you feel it, it's usually quite clammy. That means that it's very digestible, horses find it very palatable, and therefore tend to do very well on it, so it's useful for poor doers where you might want to promote weight gain. Another scenario where you might use wrapped hay or haylage is for the performance horse, so it tends to be a much cleaner forage than hay, which can have a higher mould and dust count. So we have three materials here that we can use as forage for horses. So straw is the least digestible, and it is actually feasible to feed that as part of the total forage requirement for horses that are good doers. We also have hay and we have haylage. Now, straw and hay are sun-dried, and that inevitably means that they have a higher mould count. It's just naturally occurring, and the sun-drying process doesn't kill those moulds off. When we wrap forages to create haylage, or indeed when we precision dry our alfalfa and grass for inclusion in our feeds, it's much more effective at killing off those moulds. So it makes them much better for horses that are competing, where respiratory health is really important for performance, but also for the older horse that might have respiratory issues such as equine asthma, formerly known as RAO. We're often asked at Dengy which grass product is the most suitable for a particular horse or pony. And the key point really is that all of our grass is UK grown, so it's traced right back to the field it was grown in. We have a selection of products here to show you. So here we have the grass pellets, and these are pure grass with nothing else added at all. So literally squished into a pellet with no preservatives, no molasses, and the grass species we use tend to be a combination of fescue, ryegrass and timothy. Here you can see the pure grass, and again there's absolutely nothing else added to it. It's pure grass, just chopped and dried, and again we can trace it right back to the field it was grown in. In the middle you can see the meadow grass with herbs and oil. This is a higher calorie product which is ideal for promoting weight gain in poor doers, or if you use it at lower feeding rates for increasing and improving coat shine and condition. So when deciding which grass product to use for your horse, there are various factors to take into account. If your horse has really poor dentition, so issues like diastemas, or maybe they're old and have lost teeth, or they're a bit loose and wobbly, then something like the pure grass pellets soaked into a mash is probably the best option. It's very digestible, so easy for the horse to break down, and will help to promote weight gain and condition. If you need some more chew time, so something like the pure grass is going to be the best option. It's very lightweight and fluffy, so you get a lot of product for your weight. So if you're feeding a horse, say a 500 kilo horse, you might want to use 1% of body weight as a minimum amount alongside other forages if they can manage them. This bucket weighs around half a kilo, so you get lots of chew time, and research has shown that providing your horse with multiple fibre types when they are stabled helps to give them more enrichment while they're in the stable. And if you have other species on your yard such as sheep, alpacas or goats, then they can enjoy Dengy pure grass too. So meadow grass with herbs and oil is our highest calorie grass product. It's a blend of grasses with a rapeseed oil coating and a selection of herbs added to aid palatability. It's actually really high calorie, so we wouldn't recommend it as a total hay replacer, but it can make up a partial hay replacement, and it's ideal for those that are competing away from home where you might want some extra chew time. The oil provides slow release energy, which is great for a performance horse, or for those that are poor doers where you want to promote a bit of condition. The added grass pellets in there are a nice tasty extra to encourage horses to eat up.
Hi, my name's Tracy Hammond and I'm an equine nutritionist for Dengie Horse Feeds. I look after the feedline team who are responsible for giving feeding advice to horse owners on a daily basis. It can be really challenging feeding a horse or pony that's a good doer, especially if we have additional problems like laminitis to manage as well. Here in the UK we have two main sources of forage to feed our horses, be it hay or haylage. And both of these can still be really far too many calories for most of our leisure horses that perhaps aren't working very hard. And so often we need to look for an alternative to help keep their weight in check. So when selecting forages for our good doers, it can be a challenge, but there are some things that we can do to help us make more informed choices. Sometimes we can have a think about when the forage was cut, because that will affect its digestibility. So for example, haylage tends to be cut earlier when the plant is less mature, and then it may therefore be more digestible, and the good doer is likely to do far better on it. Hay tends to be later cut, and if you have a really late cut hay, what you may feel in your hand is that it's quite coarse and stalky, which would tend to suggest that it is more fibrous, less digestible, and perhaps a little bit lower in calories. However, the only way to really know the nutritional value of your forage is to get it analysed. For some good doers, it's not only the amount of calories that we're concerned about in the forage, but the amount of non-structural carbohydrate, or NSC, which includes our sugars and starches, that we're also concerned about, especially for those that are more at risk of laminitis due to underlying insulin dysregulation. There's no way, just by looking at forage, to know how much sugar and starch it provides. That needs to be done by analysis. Sometimes people assume that haylage is higher sugar than hay, but that's not always the case. A true haylage will actually be lower sugar than hay because when it's fermenting, some of the sugar is used in the storage process. When, however, we're talking about wrapped hay, then it's much drier and that fermentation doesn't occur, so the sugar level is then comparable to normal hay. For laminitis-prone individuals, we may wish to soak our hay as a means of reducing the level of sugar. Results can be highly variable, and from research there's lots of different information on how long we should be soaking for or the amount of volume of water that we should use. On the whole, a warmer water, a longer soak time and a larger volume of water are likely to result in greater losses of sugar from your hay. In terms of soaking time, In hotter conditions, soaking for long periods can result in less hygienic hay and hay that is less palatable, and so often it's not recommended. In hot conditions, we suggest soaking for up to 4 hours. In colder conditions, when we're likely to get less losses of sugar due to colder water, we would soak for longer periods, up to 12 hours. For some good doers, hay and haylage can simply be too high in calories, and so we may need to look for a suitable alternative to reduce their calorie intake to help manage their weight. One of the options that we have for reducing calorie intake is to use straw as part of the forage ration. You can use up to 1/3 straw as part of the usual forage ration to reduce the overall calorie intake, and it also helps to increase chew time as well. If you're using straw to replace traditional hay, then you can expect around a 16% reduction in calorie intake. If you're using straw to replace your haylage, then that can be even greater. If the forage on your yard is simply too calorific for your good doer, another option is to use a really low calorie hay replacer such as Dengie Hi-Fi Light. Hi-Fi Light is typically lower calorie than average hay and provides a similar level of sugar. Hi-Fi Light can be used as a partial or total hay replacer. Simply replace your hay on a weight for weight basis with the same weight of Hi-Fi Light. When feeding good doers, unfortunately we may have to restrict the amount that they have in order to manage their weight. First and foremost, we want to choose the most appropriate forage for them and the lowest calorie one available so that hopefully we can feed more. If this isn't possible, we may have to restrict them to 1.5% of their body weight on a dry matter basis in order to reduce their overall calorie intake and manage their weight. This is the absolute minimum that we would recommend feeding. When feeding smaller amounts of forage, one of the challenges is keeping our horses and ponies occupied for as long as possible, and so we've got a few tricks and tips here to help you achieve that. One of the options that we have for slowing down hay intake is to actually use a small hold hay net. Smaller holes means that it's harder for the horse to get the forage from the net, and it extends the amount of eating time. Where possible, we would recommend dividing your forage ration into several small nets around the stable to encourage foraging activity and keeping your horse occupied for longer. Another option we have for slowing the rate of hay intake, which can be especially useful if your horse is out in something like a wood chip paddock or a no grass area, is something like one of these hay balls, because this also encourages a little bit of movement and activity when your horse is extracting the hay from the ball. When using something like Dengie Hi-Fi Light as a hay replacer, there are a couple of tricks that we can use to extend eating time. Put something like a ball in the bucket. Anything that the horse has to manipulate around can help to extend eating time. Also, you can actually spread the Hi-Fi Light out in a bigger bucket, or perhaps even on rubber matting if you have it in your stable, so that the horse can't take such big mouthfuls all at once. When feeding good doers, a spring balance is an essential piece of kit. You should always be weighing your forage in an attempt to restrict calorie intake and keep your horse at a healthy weight.
Hello, I'm Claire Rakers, the Performance Horse Nutritionist at Dengy. Today we're going to discuss using forage replacers for dentally compromised horses. Research suggests that we should be aiming to feed at least 1.5% of our horse's body weight in fibre per day, but this poses a problem for horses that struggle to chew. Although we think of dental problems being associated with older horses, this is not always the case. Younger horses with gaps between their teeth or diastemas can also struggle. There are 5 telltale signs that your horse is struggling to chew. Number 1, he's taking longer to eat his feed than normal. Number 2, he's dropping food or quidding whilst eating. Number 3, repeated episodes of choking. Number 4, you might see longer pieces of forage in his droppings. And number 5, all these things added together may result in weight loss. The key for these horses is to provide them with fibre in a form that they can manage. There are a number of products within the Dengy range that can be used as a forage replacement for horses with poor teeth. If they can still manage to chew, we would recommend using a short chopped fibre because that will provide more chew time. Pure Grass is a precision dried grass product. It's soft and easy to chew and digest. Alternatively, we have Hi-Fi Senior. Hi-Fi Senior combines precision dried grass with alfalfa, and the addition of the alfalfa provides some good quality protein which is beneficial for older horses that may struggle to digest and absorb the protein efficiently. In our study, horses with poor dentition that were fed a mash consumed as much as those with normal teeth. The Dengy products that can be used as a mash are grass pellets and Alpha Beet. We recommend using Alpha Beet as a partial forage replacer. It's lower in sugar and is great for providing extra calories for condition and weight gain. The grass pellets can be used as a complete forage replacement, and the grass naturally contains a bit more sugar, which is great for tempting fussy feeders or hiding medication for those that need it. Our top 3 tips for feeding hay replacers to horses with poor dentition are: number 1, weigh your forage replacer. Short chopped fibres can be really light and fluffy, and it's surprising how much volume you need to feed to achieve your 1.5% of the horse's body weight. Number 2, divide your total hay replacement ration into as many smaller meals as possible to minimise the time the gut is empty. Number 3, don't soak your feed too far in advance, as it can spoil, especially in warmer weather. Some horses eat less forage when away from home because they're distracted or excited by their new environment. Using one of our tasty forage replacers can help to encourage the horse to eat more fibre. Both of these feeds contain a blend of precision dried grass and alfalfa, which makes it very clean and ideal for the performance horse. The Hi-Fi Senior has a similar nutritional value to top quality hay, and it can be used as a complete hay replacer. The Performance Fibre has an oil coating which provides some additional slow releasing energy, and it can be used as a partial hay replacer.
So at Dengy we have a selection of pelleted fibres that can be used as complete or partial hay replacers. If we take the pure grass pellets, they can be fed dry in a treat or snack bowl to provide some enrichment in the stable, or you can soak them into a mash for horses with poor dentition. With Dengy Alpha Beet, it must be soaked prior to feeding because it contains amylase sugar beet alongside the alfalfa. We recommend 3 to 4 parts water to 1 part pellets, and it's a 2-hour cold soak or a 15-minute hot soak. Dengy Alpha Beet is one of our most versatile feeds. Once you've soaked it, you can add it to the bucket feed. It's very low in sugar, so it's a great way to add extra calories to the ration without increasing their sugar and starch intake. Because Dengy Alpha Beet is fed soaked, it's a great way to aid your horse's recovery from competition. It gives them everything they need: water, highly digestible fibre, and if you add electrolytes, it's going to maximise their recovery. Dengy are the leading producer of fibre feeds in the UK. All the fibres we use in our feeds are 100% British grown, which means you can trace every bag back to the field it was grown in. We're approved under UFAS, FEMAS and Beta-NOPS assurance schemes, which means you can have complete confidence in every bag you use. So if you have any queries about how to use a forage replacer for your horse, or any general inquiries about feeding, please don't hesitate to contact our team of nutritionists. They're all highly qualified, very practical people, and be delighted to help you.